So we're going to get started. Thank you for coming. This is our Reflections on Rio session. I'm Jennifer Bryant. I'm the editor of USDF Connection, but more importantly, I am an Olympics and Paralympics junkie. I love these competitions, and so it is really fun to have many, if not most, of our 2016 Rio Team USA Olympians and Paralympians with us. Why don't I let you each briefly introduce yourselves, and then we will get started with some fun questions.
Okay. Hi. Most of you guys know me. I'm Robert Dover. I'm the technical advisor and past chef to keep for the United States dressage team.
Hello, I'm Stefan Peters, and one of those real lucky guys to ride a horse like Legolas in the Olympics, and give the microphone to my family members over here.
I'm Casey Perry Glass, and I rode Dublé.
I'm Allison Brock, and I rode Roosevelt.
I'm Annie Peavy, and I rode Lancelot Warrior.
I'm Margaret McIntosh, and I was lucky enough to take Rio to Rio.
I'm Rebecca Hart, and I took Schroeder's Romani.
All right, so the purpose of this was not so much to talk about the competitions, but your experiences, because we love to hear the stories. We love to find out what went on behind the scenes. So what I'd love to hear you guys talk about a little bit is what was something unexpected about the competition, particularly for those of you for whom this was your first time at an Olympic or Paralympic Games. What happened that you didn't expect?
They had the shooting competition right by our venue. I wasn't expecting that. Neither was Dublé.
Yeah, and we actually found a bullet shell at the venue one day, but obviously nothing happened. And but we could hear it once in a while. But I have to say, overall, the event was extremely well organized, and I think personally that the venue was at least as nice as London. So, but as far as unexpected issues, we were actually in pretty good shape.
Yeah. This was obviously my first Paralympics, and I was overwhelmed by all the abundant energy in the Paralympic Village. When you walked around and said hello to everyone, they all had big smiles on their face, but there wasn't one person there that had the full complement of arms and legs. And you didn't even notice that because everyone ran around and had a wonderful time, and everyone was happy to help or push your wheelchair. It was just an overwhelmingly positive experience, and I was so proud to be part of that group.
Well, 10 minutes before my first competition day, the soccer match ended around the stadium, and children were setting off fireworks every 5 minutes, and Lance did not love that so much. And finally, it ended right before I got on, luckily. And then to go into the arena with it filled with 10,000 spectators was just amazing, and it was a beautiful arena and a lovely place to ride.
One of the unexpected things and Stefan said it well, that all these riders become your family. We were in training camp in Ocala. We had an unexpected moment where we actually all had to hunker down in the bathroom because there was a tornado that came through. So we had some unscheduled team bonding in the bathroom. And it was pretty special. But the venue was truly amazing, and all the volunteers and everyone that was there was so warm and welcoming, which was really nice.
I would say that maybe the biggest unexpected thing was how well everything really was for us compared to what we were prepared to see before we left, because there were so many stories about riots in the streets, about the water, which actually was problematic, especially in my room where I turned the faucet on in our hotel room and water came up from the floor. Within 45 seconds, it was 3 inches deep. So there were unexpected problems and issues, but for the most part, the venue, as Stefan said, was superb. Footing, the organization could not have been better. So we were prepared for all sorts of things. And like in all Olympics, you have America sends not only its great staff that did an amazing job, Will Connell and Leah and Christy. Hallie went with us, and of course is, the best there is. But all the staff that they had hired as well there made it so that the team walked in with their horses and were right at home in their stalls. Beyond that, I think that, so that was a big surprise that everything went so perfectly. And of course, for me, people said, was I surprised at the medal? And that was, for me, not a surprise. It was a relief, but not a surprise, because that's how good these guys and Laura were.
Actually, I have one more story. It's kind of funny. And Ellie, I hope you don't mind telling the story about Michael. Do you want to tell the story? That was a bit unexpected. We were in the morning getting ready to go to the venue, and Michael Barrison, who was helping Ellie, came down barely breathing, and he was coughing. And I said, "Michael, what happened?" Well, it turned out he couldn't really explain the situation, but a hotel worker put next to his water bottles. You tell the story.
Tell the story. No. So it was the morning of the second day of the Grand Prix. So Casey and I had gone the day before, and Stefan and Laura were going, and we had a very early departure that morning to school and make sure that we were available when our teammates were riding and all that stuff. And Michael texted me at, 6 o'clock in the morning and said, "Are you there?" And I was like, "Yeah, we have to leave." And then I didn't hear from him, and he ended up stumbling downstairs. But apparently the cleaning lady, we were all drinking bottled water in Rio, and it was available to us in mass quantities. So all of us had multiple bottles around all the time, and either big ones or small ones. And he had a small one that he had drunk about halfway down and capped it and put it on his counter. And the cleaning lady had come in and used the half full bottle to extend some cleaning fluid. So basically, we laugh now, but she had scrunched the label and even gone so far to take a pen and sort of do this on it, but she recapped it and left it on the counter. And the next morning he got up very early because we had an early start and it was pitch black, and he went to take some medication. And as most of us take medication, you take your pills and you go wham and you slam it. And he drank this half full bottle of cleaning fluid, and it wasn't strong enough to kill him. In fact, it didn't even really slow him down from talking. But he was pretty sick, and he did have to go to the hospital, and they did put him on fluids and give him anti-nausea medication, and he was told to stay home the rest of the day, and he did not, because he had to come back and tell us all about the story. So multiple times. But so that was something that happened that was a little bit odd, and I wasn't sure Will Connell wasn't going to kill the hotel manager, and it was a slight moment of panic, but it was all fine.
We call him Mr. Clean from here on.
Yeah. Well, one thing we have here for both of our Olympic and Paralympic representatives, we have one veteran of previous games, and then we have two people for whom this was their first time competing. And I know, Casey, you for one talked a little bit about how you started to feel the pressure, and how talking to Stefan and realizing that he too had felt the pressure really helped you through that first time experience. And Becca, I imagine maybe you did a little bit of the same for your Paralympic teammates. I'd love for you to talk, both the veterans and the first timers, about kind of how that worked and how you helped each other, how you helped them through that.
No, it was really beneficial for me to have kind of some new blood come up and to have the people there, because I have done it before. I've been there. I did London, I did Beijing, and this is my third go round. So to have
Is it ho-hum by now?
No, it's never ho-hum. You still go in that arena and go, okay. And but to have the enthusiasm from Annie, Sid, and Gigi, it helped me in my own performance and really kind of revisit the enthusiasm and the excitement that you do feel. And there was a first moment that I got to share with them in their first moments is that I had never done an opening ceremony because I'm there to compete, I'm there to ride. And I always, in the previous 2 games, I had gone to go to the first day I was competing. So I opted to bow out of the opening ceremony and just sleep. But this time I didn't compete for 5 days. So I got to go and I got to share it with them. And it's such the energy and the enthusiasm that you feel with all these people sharing this passion for their sport is truly overwhelming. And to get to share it with them on their first time was just an absolute phenomenal experience. And just getting to see it from their perspective really helped me and kind of round out my whole experience too.
Margaret and Annie, were there ways in which you benefited from her wisdom?
The minute I found out that I was going to Rio, I called Becca and said, oh my God, what do we do now, and what do we need, and what do we take, and is it true that we only have to take our underwear? Becca,
okay, that's not one
yes.
I hadn't heard that.
Becca was great, and that was just the beginning, sort of every step of the way. After the first day of competition, when Annie and Sydney rode, they had good rides, and we were as a team, in a good position, and Becca sat us down and sobered everybody up and said, we still have to keep your nose to the grindstone and you can't get distracted. Sydney is 18. She hadn't been to college. She's had a very sheltered life. So for the first minute we were on the plane, she was talking to all these old famous Paralympians that she knew from the 100 Days to Rio, and seemed to be very unfocused. But Becca was the salt of the earth and really talked to her really acted in a very motherly position, but also as the coach that we needed right there every minute with us.
Well, Becca and I got to share a room. And yes, Becca's my mom because she's old enough to be.
I don't think so.
So I just call her mom. And we got to share a room in Rio. And even since the summer, we live near each other, and we would have dinner, and she kind of would tell me what games are like and that it's not like competing in Europe at CPDIs. It's a whole different level. And every night before we go to bed, she would talk with me, and at dinner in the village, she would talk with me and share her chocolate. And she just has so much good advice for new-time Paralympians, and she was great help and fun to have around.
Well, my summer was a bit up and down. I started out really good at Compiègne and then had a couple lows and then got to Rio. And, I never knew much about Stefan's struggles until Ken Braddock put out an article pretty much stating that you lost a lot of weight and you went through a lot of stress. And that's when I kind of went to him and, we had a lot of chats while we were grazing the horses, and having Stefan around really helped me. Oh, I'm going to cry.
That's what this is all about.
I mean, honestly, I would hear that people thought our friendship was kind of a not real, I guess. I mean, this is the best team you can have, including Robert. You have a veteran, and then you have Allie, who is like kind of mommy. And I'm the emotional one. So, no, but I couldn't have asked for a better team to lean on through the hard times and the good times and just going through Rio with that. And sitting next to Stefan during Allie's ride in Rio, you're so like, don't do that. Oh my God, she's going for it too much. Don't do that. Okay, we're good. Okay, last center line, we're good. It's just fun. It's fun to really experience that with your team and people who you really respect and you really love, and it's nice to be able to be here with them. And even Robert, he had a lot of. Robert. No, but I mean he's been to the Olympics several times, and so it's nice to. nice to be able to lean on your team when you're having rough times. So,
Stefan, what kinds of things did you tell her that were helpful? Can you remember?
I didn't mean that to be quick.
I can't go into all the details, but it's exactly what Casey just mentioned. I told her, I remember 1996 when I qualified actually for the team. Dog and I made the team at Gladstone, and when I was on my final center line, I was super excited. But the next second, I said, "Oh my God! Now what? Now we're representing the United States at the Olympic Games." And there were so many competitors at that time that it was not so obvious that I would make the team. But the second that I did, it was just like the most stressful thing that I could possibly imagine. And yes, as Casey mentioned, I had a hard time eating, sleeping, and going to the Olympics. I didn't really know what to expect. And all those things I shared with her. But at the end of the day, I kept believing in the training that we've done. And I kept believing in my horse, kept believing in the shows that we've done before, and believed in the training system that we had accomplished. And at the end of the day, always, of course, respecting our trainers, but also listening to your gut feeling. And at the end of the day, we need to do the last minutes, especially before we go into the ring, we need to feel what is the appropriate thing to do. And I think those were the main things that we shared, but go ahead.
Okay, so when Laura was in the ring for her special, Stefan really, really wanted to run into the ring. We were sitting there like, no, we have to wait till she comes out so we don't get disqualified and lose our medal. But you and I were the only ones that really knew, like, opening ceremony, who all the athletes were. They had no idea, Laura and Allie, but I would always
the athletes from other sports?
Yeah. And I would go up to Stefan and I'd be like, go ask him for a selfie. I want a selfie with him. It was fun. I'll do that.
I want to share my experience being on the team with Stefan. And, we were all together in Europe, and we were competing together in Wellington. And also the three of us were in Europe last year together for the Pan Am stuff. And one of the things that's so great about being around Stefan when you're on these tours is he's extremely consistent and level. You never see anything wacky go on in the training. It's so consistent and it's so calm and it's so methodical, and it just brings a stabilizing energy to the group. And it was really, for me, a pleasure. And also it's a good, like, as a role model. I mean, I don't want to make you seem too old, but it was just great to have him, and also to be around all of us that for that long period of time, how we were all functioning and kind of in a rhythm and stuff. And Stefan as a teammate is so positive and reinforces you in the right way. And there was just such a high level of comfort between all of us that it just made the whole experience, even though it is very stressful and you do feel so ultimately responsible when you're representing your country, and especially for us first-timers, it just was really just incredibly supportive and wonderful. So thank you. And I won't mention your age or anything again. Here you go.
Well, thank you for saying it, but I also have to say maybe just 1 minute how much I really appreciated everything. And I have to go back 20 years, back to 96. Of course, we did win a bronze medal there. Robert was on the team. Then 2000 came around. We were in the selection trials in Florida, and my horse Grandeur had colic surgery during the selection trials, so I missed the team there, but I was still fortunate enough to travel with the team to Sydney. 2004 came around. I was the alternate with Floriano, so I missed the Olympic Games again, but I watched very proud my teammates winning a bronze medal there. 2008 came around. Ravel missed the bronze medal by 0.1%. 2012 came around. We placed 6th with the team. And then that might explain a little bit how much this meant. There's 20 years that came down to the Olympic Games in Rio. And I was sitting there with Tom, Michael Barrison, with Casey and Ellie. Laura was in the middle of her test. She was at times already at an 80%, and I kept telling them, I said, you know what?
This is my interviewing strategy. I just set them up and I just let them cry.
I said, this could really happen. And then I remember very, very specifically when Laura came down her last center line, and I said, even right now, if she screws up every single movement and gets a 5 or 6, we have a bronze medal. And to put 20 years into those 2 days was incredible. And I can't even tell you how much I appreciated this team in Rio. I mean, you guys are just awesome.
Tattoo.
Oh yeah, you got to tell that story.
We'll get to that.
In Rio, and Allie, Laura, we're trying to get Adrian to get a tattoo. And Debbie, we want the Olympic rings, and he doesn't have them. And I said, well, if we medal, will you please get a tattoo with us? And now he has to get it.
February.
They're actually generous enough to actually let me pick the spot, so that's good.
Well, I think that answers the question of, somebody like Stefan who's a veteran, is it still important and an emotional accomplishment after all these years? I think the answer is yes. But tattoos are a really good segue to, I figured maybe it was time to liven it up a little bit and lighten up. So other than tattoos, what other funny things happened on the way to Rio or while you were there? Got any other funny stories? The cleaning fluid is really not funny.
I think Robert would have killed us if we weren't all business. Right? Possibly. We had a job to do. Right.
We have a little para humor here.
There has to be
so
some
for
light
opening ceremonies, we all had electric scooters or we were using wheelchairs or whatever. And we had to go over this big kind of walkway to get through, and it started raining. And battery-powered wheelchairs don't really like the rain. So luckily mine was like the super chair, so mine decided to survive for a while. But I ended up pushing Gigi, Sydney, and myself with my wheelchair up this hill. And then we get like halfway up there and we die in front of like these military guys. And I'm like, hi. So we end up getting like a military escorted push the rest of the way up. And then we just kind of freewheeled the rest of the way down. So I'm like, yes. So, there you go. That was one story. But I have to kind of agree with Allie that it was, we were there for a job and we needed to kind of stay on the straight and narrow. Not that we didn't have fun. I mean, Gigi and I ended up kind of fencing with canes and kind of entertaining ourselves in certain ways. So, you come up with ways to keep it lively and entertaining, but you are there for a job.
It's not really that funny, but it is a story about Allie. We, in Rio, we had these alleyways of sand, and everyone was letting their horses roll in the sand and be happy, but we decided not to let our horses roll just in case they got sand in their eyes or something happened where they can't compete. And Allie looks at me, and I think the freestyles were on Monday? And we were done with the special on Friday. And Allie's like, I'm going to let Rosie roll on Friday. And I'm like, wait a minute. You're just counting yourself out of the freestyle. But you can't do that. Anything can happen. Well, I got to let Dublé roll on Friday. And he was really happy.
Can I say something too? Just as a commentary on that, that was a kind of a hard life lesson for me. And I'm going to just say it again. Robert, you were right. You were right. And I think I had expected to only go in and just do the team stuff and then be done. And Robert had very clearly said to me in a meeting right after Rotterdam when we were all sat down to be fully prepared and expect to make it to the freestyle. And I was like, Robert, you don't know what you're talking about. 6th Olympics, whatever. And that was a terrible mistake on my part. And I will never go into something like this with thinking or kind of selling myself short again. Because I did make the cuts and I even moved up in the ranking. In some ways it's good to talk about this because this is stuff that happens and behind the scenes that you don't think is going on or whatnot. But, that was my reality. And my poor horse hadn't been allowed. He's used to a lot of turnout, and he kept getting these skin infections in Belgium. So I couldn't turn him out, and I had promised him that at the end of the Olympics he could go roll and be filthy and all that. So, and then I had to tell him he had to wait 2 more days. But then he did get to roll, so it was all okay.
Robert, what's the most challenging thing about being a chef to keep?
Honestly, I've been, like they said, on so many teams that, and a chef to keep, the chef to keep part is not at all complicated. Chef to keeping is really filling out proper forms, making sure they're all entered. That's what that is. The technical advisor is somebody that works like a coach with private personal trainers and the athletes, and makes sure that no matter what it's about, they end up at their competition ready to achieve a personal best. That's what the job really is. It's not to take them away from their personal trainers or even take them away from their, what Stefan said is so important, their own gut instinct as to what they need to do. Because they've achieved excellence already in order to get there. But putting all the pieces in place so that they can feel as confident and their horses can feel as confident, and of course the rest of their teams, as confident as they can be when they go to do their job. That's what my job's about. And of course, when you have somebody like Hallie and the rest of our staff along, it makes it much, much easier because she's just amazing. We have the best owners, the best grooms, the best teams behind these people that any country in the world could ever have. And of course, I was about to say, when you have Debbie McDonald by your side the whole time, Michael and many of the others aren't, and many of the others along the way, and I was really so happy that we all work very harmoniously together. And then I guess the other thing that comes to mind is when things don't go right, the person in charge has to be able to roll with the punches and figure out how to get things back on track. And that happens because whenever you go to something like this, I can tell you without any shadow of a doubt, Murphy's Law comes into play. Everything that can go wrong, that is freakishly different than any time you've been on the way to the game. So here's a perfect example. Stefan, who Ali said was always real even, when he got sick a couple of years back, it was like out of the blue, he literally almost died. And, he was so sick that he didn't know how sick he was till he was too sick. And then he was still wanting to get back in the saddle for Aachen. And I finally said, well, you let the doctor tell me that you can come out of the hospital and you can run. And he was going, he's sure he's getting on.
No, here's what the doctor said. I said, my coach is calling, and I'm just wondering if you could put a good word in for me because I now speak Aachen and I want to ride. And the doctor said was a lady, and she said, look, I know a little bit about Aachen, and I know a little bit about dressage. And if you want to die on a horse, go right ahead.
That's how sick he was. And truly, for the next weeks, really, it took him to get better and to be ready for the World Championships, which he was, and he was brilliant in. But, those are the things that do happen along the way, and that's the job.
If anybody wants to answer, what's something about going to the Olympics or the Paralympics that people might not know? A lot of it gets written about, the competition gets written about. What's something about going to this that's different from going to other competitions that doesn't get written about?
We had about a half an hour bus ride to get from the village to the venue, and it was the best bonding experience because it was a little bit like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. The buses were very bumpy, and all the wheelchairs had to be tied in. Sometimes they were tied tighter than others. But the most special thing about that ride is that you were on the bus with the riders from all the other countries, and you really had time to talk and discuss things. that for me was priceless.
I definitely agree with Gigi that you made so many friends at the games because you're all at the same venue all day and you're waiting around watching people ride and cheering them on, and you just have such close friendships. And also the clothes, you get tons of clothes before you go to Rio, which is great, very exciting.
I agree with everything that they just said. And also, I think what makes it really unique is that you're there with other sports, because normally if you're in Europe at a CDI or, here, you're always with other equestrians. And just getting to see, the throwers and the track and field athletes and everyone else, and to see that all the passion that they put into their sport, and it's kind of that unique bonding element as an athlete. And I think that's what really makes it special, is that kind of common denominator.
We all shared the same elevators, and we all lived in a 19-story building. So it was a little bit of a smush trying to get into the elevators, and you could never tell the wheelchair rugby players that there wasn't any room.
I think I have to add to what Becca said. There's something about, like, we went to the opening ceremonies, and, you realize in some ways you're at a horse show, right? And it's all people that you're familiar with because you've been competing with them. This time it was really cool because the eventers were there when we got there, and they finished out and left, and the show jumpers came in. So we got to spend some time with the rest of Team USA, which was really, really fun and really cool. And but to go to something like the Olympics and be at the opening ceremonies and see all these thousands of super athletes and then be with Team USA, you become so aware that you're part of something that's so much bigger than yourself and even the little equestrian, stuff that we do. And it was really quite amazing. The clothes too, like Christmas.
Yeah, I have to agree. Actually, we spent quite a bit of time in the Olympic Village this time too. And I still remember talking to some athletes from South Africa. They were voting during that time. I remember talking to some athletes from Iran, Iraq. Politics are completely beside the games. It didn't matter. I remember the two girls from North Korea, South Korea talking to each other. Yeah, we talked to Michael Phelps. I have a great picture with Casey and Michael Phelps that we're going to see later at the gala.
Chicken and didn't want to talk to him, so I had to do it.
What do you mean? I got this organized for you. I got this deal brokered for you. But anyway, what an amazing experience just to see all the athletes there and just that peaceful unity and that harmonious situation between all the athletes. Just very cool.
And that probably is about all the time we have. Please give our bronze medal team and our wonderful Paralympians and our wonderful chef a huge round of applause.